Well, it's been a while, folks, but I'm back, and it couldn't be a better time, because it's Fighting Game Month here on Anime Abandon. Yes, the one genre that unites all gamers from all walks of life together to beat the ever-loving crap out of each other. From inception to today, fighting games have been a staple of the video game landscape, pitting friend against friend, rival against rival, and sexist idiots against sexist idiots.
You know, I'm hoping that since she's a woman, she's also a white woman, you know, we can use that to our advantage, because everyone likes white women.
Despite the decorum that the genre has garnered itself, it hasn't been able to translate itself very well into anime. You think the two will go hand in hand, but time and time again they keep missing the mark. We've covered 4 different anime fighting game adaptations over the course of the show, and all of them aren't what you'd call seminal classics. Hell, the best one was probably Fatal Fury. At least that one had some camp charm to it. So I wanted to open the month on a memorable note. And that's why I chose what may be the most famous fighting game anime movie of all time. Street Fighter II. It's the game that defined an entire generation. An undisputed classic that not only set the standard for all 2D fighters that have come after, but also became a cornerstone for video games as a whole. It introduced us to characters that have stood the test of time, all iconic in their own rights, and wholly symbolizing one of the largest video game companies in the world. The movie, not so much. Look, I've been getting requests for this movie for a long time now, and I've been dragging my heels for as long as I could, but I can't hold it off any longer. This movie just doesn't work. No two ways about it. I know that this is a fondly remembered bit of nostalgia for some people, and I will fully admit that there are some bright spots here and there, but Christ, is it a mess. Well, no use putting it off any longer. Time to ruin yet another old Taku memory. First, let's get what the film did right out of the way. The fight choreography and animation. Even by today's standards, the level of detail is truly remarkable. Hell, the film opens with a classic bout, Sagat vs. Ryu. This fight is so good that it almost makes up for the fact that it keeps being interrupted by this annoying MS-DOS looking filter. You find out later that this is M. Bison gathering intel on all would-be fighters, and more on that later, but I wanted to point out these weird little categories this program is measuring. Apparently, this apparatus is capable of measuring a human being's bodily integrity from seemingly miles away, having no physical connection to him whatsoever. Better still, this program also has the ability to measure abstract concepts that have no tangible or physical presence. So you better grab your D6s, because it apparently can measure a person's leadership, judgment, perception, and you're gonna love this, a person's objectivity. It has the ability to objectively measure the subjective notion of a person's objectivity. Sagat has Ryu on the ropes, but he fights back by landing a wicked sweet dragon punch. Or Shoryuken if you're feeling purist. Ah, yes, who could ever forget that classic line of Ryu's whenever he throws an Hadouken? Ah! What an anticlimax. You're waiting as Sagat charges at Ryu, he's building up his energy for the most epic of Hadoukens, and he doesn't say it! It's not like they had to time any lip flaps, his mouth was hidden by his shoulder and the flash. There's no excuse! Still, this beginning makes 1,000 promises for this movie, and then it proceeds to break nearly every single one of them. Oh sure, there are plenty of awesome fight scenes, but half of them are of absolutely no importance or consequence. We'll cover this more when we get to each individual scene, but suffice it to say, this movie treats fight scenes like Mel Brooks movies treats musical numbers. We begin the movie proper with Cammy committing the least subtle assassination in the history of the world. that's all we see of Cammy. She immediately gets captured because no one is capable of being dense enough to miss that little circus act, and we see her only once later being interrogated. That's it. Which leads me to another of the film's problems. Its utterly wasted cast. I know that writing a film that has all of these characters is tricky, and I also know they needed to include all of them in the film to appease the fans. But if all they're going to do is have these glorified cameos, I'd prefer if they weren't in the film to begin with. Make a good movie first. Then worry about pleasing the fans.
This timid little flower is Cammy White. What we know is that she's a special agent attached to MI6.
Interesting report, Chun-Li, but tell me, did you not get the memo about office dress code policy? I just love the fact that Chun-Li dresses in her combat outfit even at her Interpol office. You'd think her spiky wristbands would get in the way of her completing her TPS reports.
She's being interrogated at Base B. However, she claims to have no memory of the past 3 years.
Which means?
Which means, sir, she's being controlled somehow.
Or she could be lying. Is there an opposite to Occam's razor?
According to our data, Shadow Law is...
Wait. Shadow Law? You know what? I'm actually fine with this change. No, really, I am. Shadowloo always sounded weird to me as a word, like it was Napoleon's other great defeat that he doesn't like to talk about. At least Shadow Law sounds a bit more menacing and a bit more in line with what M. Bison is trying to do. Take over the world. Keep waiting for that clip to show up. I'm sure it'll happen.
We do know that Shadow Law isn't selecting killing machines at random. It's gathering information on street fighters around the world. We've had several reports on this.
Street fighters turning terrorist?
Yeah, I know. Sounds stupid when you say it out loud, right? But seriously, millions have died.
This walking mountain of muscle is called Sagat. He's a champion Muay Thai fighter and is considered a national hero in Thailand. Contestant number 2 is Balrog, whose penchant for violent behavior got him permanently banned from boxing.
Oh yeah, because there's simply no room in boxing for violence! Chun-Li explains that in order for Interpol to take Shadow Law down, they're going to have to team up with the American military, which means Guile makes his entrance. But it's not long before we're smacked upside the head with yet another problem with the film. See if you can guess what it is. It takes the film 3 minutes. 3 minutes! To have M. Bison exit his jet and sit in his chair. That's all that happens! Holy hell does this movie drag its ass. The movie barely has a plot as it is, so when it pulls the drag chute like this, it's damn near unbearable. The movie is about an hour and a half out of your life, but if you manage to cut out all the unnecessary characters and all the padding, you'd somehow be 3 minutes younger. It's about here we get our first earful of M. Bison, and he's no Raul Julia, but then again, who is? It's not that he does a bad job, it's just that the script is letting his performance go to waste. Whereas Raul had lines like this...
The day Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Our M. Bison has lines like this.
Any man strong enough to beat the crap out of Sagat is a man I want found.
Just when you thought it wasn't possible to miss Raul Julia more. It seems that Bison here has had his eye on Ryu for some time now and is scouring the globe for him, since he's been wandering around more or less ceaselessly. A guy who wanders around the globe without ID. Yep, this is pre-9/11. By the by, if you were hoping I would make some kind of over 9,000 joke because of Ryu's power level here, what year do you think this is? I think the movie is self-aware because after it wastes even more time with a pointless flashback of Ryu doing Tai Chi on a cliff, it decides to give you whiplash. God! My iPod Shuffle playlist has less disorienting segues. I forgot to mention that Manga Video ponied up the cash to license a bunch of 90s alt-rock to put in the background, and they fit about as well as Crocs on the Queen of England. Or Crocs on anybody, for that matter. It's about here that the movie pumps the brakes and comes to a grinding halt, and follows Ryu in his many misadventures with the rest of the street fighting crew. Curious thing, though, he comes across Fei Long in China, and supposedly Fei Long here is being played by Bryan Cranston, but the internet has not been able to confirm this. So, clear the air once and for all, Mr. Cranston. Did you play Fei Long in Street Fighter II? One day, Bennett. One day.